One moment, let me play you a clip of something.
Have you been on the receiving end of more threats since you've had the January 6 defendants in your court?
Yes, I've had more threats than what used to be the case. Yes, I have received a greater number of threats as a result of that incident, and the fact that cases arising out of that incident have appeared before me. I mean, it was rare. I've been a judge for over 40 years, and this is a new phenomenon. I'm not saying that it didn't happen before, but it was very rare that I would ever receive any type of a threat, regardless of what type of cases I was handling. And unfortunately, that is no longer the case. I know the Marshal Service has seen a significant increase in the number of threats against judges. And I think obviously that's very, very, very concerning.
You know, it's rare that we get to hear from a sitting federal judge, but obviously this is a gravely important issue. I wonder what made you speak out tonight and speak publicly.
Well, I am concerned because, like I say, we have had judges who've lost their lives, or family members have lost their lives as a result of individuals who have been litigants in their courtroom. And I think it's important, in order to preserve our democracy, that we maintain the rule of law. And the rule of law can only be maintained if we have independent judicial officers who are able to do their job and ensure that the laws are in fact enforced, and that the laws are applied equally to everybody who appears in our courthouse. And I think it's important that as judges we speak out and say things in reference to things that conceivably are going to impact on the process. Because if we don't have a viable court system that's able to function efficiently, then we have tyranny. And I don't think that would be good for the future of our country and the future of democracy in our country.
Senior Judge Reggie Walton, it's great to talk to you. Thank you for joining us here on The Source tonight.
Thank you for having me.
That's Judge Reggie Walton, who sat down with Caitlin Collins on CNN. I'll play you a little bit more in a moment, but I do have something to say, which is, I don't know whether it's a sign of our times. I don't know whether it's a mark as to how serious things are, how serious things could be, or whether it's maybe a sign that perhaps the legal world is more open. I'd like to think it's the latter, although I have suspects that it probably isn't. There are clear situations where people in a political nature, and probably on social media as well, think that they are above the law, think that they can run around, whether from the back of their truck, whether from the back of their campaign office, whether in front of their keyboards on social media, and the law doesn't apply to them. Not only does the law not apply to them, they can go beyond any restrictions, any legal rulings. They can attack witnesses. They can intimidate witnesses. They can send death threats. They can send vile, nasty lies. They can smear people, and the law won't catch up with them. And that's probably best illustrated by the former President of the United States of America, who is backed up by literally a whole trailer load of journalists, TV people at Fox News, where they've decided it's not martial law. I mean, it's their law, it's their rules, and it's totally contradictory, total hypocrisy. It doesn't matter what the subject is, it's always hypocrisy. I mean, for example, President Biden on Friday in New York had a fundraiser, raised almost $25 million with him, President Obama and President Clinton. The line now coming from the cable news stations is, oh, well, Trump is all about the people, not money. Not true. How many felonies does Trump have? And most of those are connected to money and, not clean money. But that is what's going on here. It's not just a blind eye which is being turned on. It's not just a situation that if you're a Trumpy Trump, you're allowed to rewrite the criminal laws. They're basically saying is, if you actually are a police officer, a judge, anyone who's responsible for making the law, unless you agree with what we say, we'll break it, we'll ignore it. That can't be right.
senior U.S. District Judge Reggie Walton, who was nominated for judgeships by both Presidents Bush 41 and 43. And it's great to have you here, Judge, tonight. And I just want to say
making comments about a judge, and it's particularly problematic when those comments are in the form of a threat, especially if they're directed at one's family. I mean, we do these jobs because we're committed to the rule of law and we believe in the rule of law, and the rule of law can only function effectively when we have judges who are prepared to carry out their duties without the threat of potential physical harm.
And you know personally, I mean, what this is like. Someone threatened your daughter once as well.
Yes, threatened me one day, and then the next day called and made a threat against my daughter, and also had indicated my address. So they obviously had done some research to find out that I had a daughter and what her name was, and also where I live.
I mean, what's that even? That must be terrifying.
Well, it is, but you kind of have to appreciate that you can't let that impact on how you live your life and how you treat litigants who are before you, because even though threats may be made against you and against your family, you still have an obligation to ensure that everybody who comes into your courtroom is treated fairly, regardless of who they are or what they've done. But nonetheless, it is very troubling, because I think it is an attack on the rule of law when judges are threatened, and particularly when their family is threatened. And it's something that's wrong and should not happen.
Given that, I mean, and you said it shouldn't impact your work, but it's got to be something that's always kind of in the back of your mind when you're going to work, when you're leaving, to have those kinds of threats hanging out there.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's a reality that it's not inconceivable that something could happen. We always have to hope that it doesn't occur. But, you know, several years ago, one of my colleagues up in New Jersey, her husband was seriously injured. And sadly, her son was killed. And we had a judge out in Chicago who someone came after her. And fortunately, she was not there, but her family members were. And several of them lost their lives. So it's a reality that we live with, but you try not to let it impact on your day-to-day life.
I don't expect you to get political here, obviously, but do you think that's something that Donald Trump considers when he posts something like this?
I can't get into someone's mind to say whether they appreciate the impact that they're doing, but I would think that any reasonable thinking person would appreciate that when they say things, it can sometimes resonate with others. And I think that's particularly true when you have somebody who has status in our society and they make certain statements. It can cause people to act on those statements, even if they don't necessarily intend for someone to do so. So I think it's very important that people in positions of authority be very circumspect in reference to the things that they say, so that they're not causing others to act on what they say and maybe cause injury or death to someone as a result of that.
What do you make of how the judge here, Judge Juan Merchan, didn't include himself or his family in the gag order?
I can't think of her surname, but when Amy, somebody write in the comment section what her surname is, the Trump-appointed member of the Supreme Court, Amy Barrett Cohen, or something like that. Apologies if I got it wrong. My brain's half asleep. There was so much outrage. How dare you say this about a judge? These people need to be reported. They're outside the judge's house. Yet the way Trump carries on, I mean, it's not just inflammatory. This is the person who's meant to be at the top of the tree. We're meant to look up. This is the person that wants to be president. You have MAGAs rolling around, threatening to harm, maim. Well, you saw happen on Jan 6, but they're victims. So the judge speaking to me is a sign we're going down a road where perhaps it's a dead end. It's how bad it is. And if we don't say something soon, the car is going to crash into the wall, because if we don't have respect and common laws, what happens? If we have a situation where at the moment, if it's a law set that's endorsed by somebody at Fox News, endorsed by the Republican Party, endorsed by the Trump side of the Republican Party, endorsed by Trump, that's the only law that counts. That can't be right. It just can't. And anybody who says anything else is like, well, you're a traitor, and all types of other stuff. I don't think Liz Cheney's a liberal. I really don't. But she does believe in the Constitution. And I keep on saying, I'm an outsider looking in, and I'm a bit lost, and there's no GPS to help me, so perhaps you can shed some light on just what's going on.
Yeah, I understand why he wouldn't do that. I mean, again, I think we cannot make ourselves a part of the case. I mean, obviously we are a part of the case because we're presiding over the proceeding, but we can't make the case in the issue about us. And that can be very difficult, but it comes with the territory. I mean, first and foremost, when we take the oath of office, we have an obligation to make sure that all parties who enter our courtroom receive a fair adjudication, regardless of who they are, what their politics are, or what they've alleged to have done. And therefore, I think it's crucial that judges not make themselves a part of the issue. So I think the judge did the right thing by not including himself in the gag order.
You're someone who has always been really straightforward in your assessment of the former president. You know, if you read your comments when you're sentencing people, when you're in these cases, you once referred to him as a charlatan at the sentencing of a January 6th defendant. I know you've gotten a lot of those cases before you. You said that you don't think he cares about democracy, only power. That you once seemed to suggest you weren't sure he'd accept defeat if he lost in this election. Do you still feel that way tonight?
I'd rather not comment on that. I mean, I've made those, the comments I've made in the context of the sentencings I impose, because I'm hoping that what I say to the individuals who I'm sentencing will resonate with them and cause them to rethink the activity that they engaged in that brought them before the court, and hopefully deter them from engaging in further conduct of that nature in the future.
Have you been on the receiving end of more threats since you've had the January 6th defendants in your court?
Yes, I've had more threats than what used to be the case. Yes, I have received a greater number of threats as a result of that incident, and the fact that cases arising out of that incident have appeared before me. I mean, it was rare. I've been a judge for over 40 years. And this is a new phenomenon. I'm not saying that it didn't happen before, but it was very rare that I would ever receive any type of a threat, regardless of what type of cases I was handling. And unfortunately, that is no longer the case. I know the Marshal Service has seen a significant increase in the number of threats against judges. And I think, obviously, that's very, very, very concerning.
You know, it's rare that we get to hear from a sitting federal judge, but obviously this is a gravely important issue. I wonder what made you speak out tonight and speak publicly.
Well, I am concerned because, like I say, we have had judges who've lost their lives, or family members have lost their lives as a result of individuals who have been litigants in their courtroom. And I think it's important, in order to preserve our democracy, that we maintain the rule of law. And the rule of law can only be maintained if we have independent judicial officers who are able to do their job and ensure that the laws are in fact enforced, and that the laws are applied equally to everybody who appears in our courthouse. And I think it's important that as judges, we speak out and say things in reference to things that conceivably are going to impact on the process. Because if we don't have a viable court system that's able to function efficiently, then we have tyranny. And I don't think that would be good for the future of our country and the future of democracy in our country.
Senior Judge Reggie Watts.